So, a couple of weeks ago, the MCU dropped the last episode of their series Secret Invasion, and let me tell you, people just loved it. They loved the last episode, and they loved that the producers made the interesting choice throughout the series to use AI-generated images in the show's intro. Now, this, in truth, like Emilia Clarke's appropriation of Dave Bautista's big, beautiful arms, made a few people upset, especially amidst the ongoing writer's strike and union demands to keep AI out of the writer's room. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the implications of this use of AI, and not necessarily debunk, but at least raise some questions about how Marvel and certain fans have defended and justified this choice. This will eventually devolve into me just kind of rambling about bigger trends in AI, but I want to note that I'm not super concerned about calling out Disney or Marvel Studios for this particular use case. That said, I think a lot of folks will be kind of surprised that Disney jumped into AI, so prominently and so early, and that is a little worrying. To set the stage, Marvel's Secret Invasion is a show about old-ass Nick Fury coming back to Earth to combat a terrorist cell of alien shapeshifters known as the Skrull. The show's intro, rendered in an amorphous kind of painterly style with shifting visuals and sort of composite noise, used an unnamed AI software to produce the images that comprise the animated sequence. They coined this style Skrull Cubism, and while they may have fed whatever software they used some images to get started, it's unclear to what extent the studio customized the model or the degree of human input that went into the images themselves after they were produced. Now, if you're familiar with the ongoing AI debate, you'll know that people generally object to its potential to replace human artists and laborers, and the fact that AI training data sets are often composed of images that are just kind of scraped off the internet without the consent of creators or copyright holders. And to hear the show's producers talk about this choice, it's clear that the higher-up folks working on Secret Invasion only have a very basic understanding of how this technology works, relying on visual effects contractor Method Studios to actually utilize this unspecified AI vendor to achieve the results that they got. And the producers kind of describing the process for generating these images in pretty generic end-user terms that most of us will probably be familiar with at this point. Here's what director and executive producer Ali Salim told Polygon about the process. Quote, "We would talk to them about ideas and themes and words, and then the computer would go off and do something. And then we could change it a little bit by using words, and it would change." End quote. Now, yes, this answer does sound like it was written by ChatGPT, but in fairness, this is sort of how a producer or art director gets anything done, by telling another person words to make them do it. Still, I want to give Salim the slight benefit of the doubt here. I don't think he's necessarily doing anything insidious or being willfully ignorant about AI, and it's doubtful that Method or their mysterious AI vendor gave them, an in-depth rundown of how this tech works. The fact that he doesn't have an understanding of how AI models work is not surprising, but somebody at Disney must have known about the ethical and potentially legal issues that this might raise and greenlit this decision anyway. Maybe some of that objectionable stuff might be happening in that space where the computer would, go off and do something. I don't know. Anyway, Method Studios, who produced the intro sequence, have also defended the choice on the basis that no jobs were replaced via the use of AI in this context, and significant work was still required by human 2D and 3D animators to produce the intro, which is totally plausible, absolutely. A lot of AI projects still need plenty of coaxing at this point to get them into a polished state, whether that's paint-overs, hand animation of graphics, or iterative prompts to tweak the initial output. But there's a difference between replacing a job or position and replacing work. Let's take a look at She-Hulk's credits illustrations. Obviously hand-drawn, comic book-style illustrations that fit the theme of a courtroom sketch. It's probably my favorite thing about the show. Might be the only thing I liked about that show, one of the few at least, but these were not created by someone on Disney's payroll who held a job like, intro or outro sequence illustrator. The Toronto-based artist Kagan McLeod completed these drawings as part of a one-time work-for-hire contract through a separate agency like Method Studios. Now, if Kagan had never been hired and an AI had been used instead, we couldn't exactly say that he had been replaced, right? Because he just never would have held the position in the first place. And even if he had been brought in to punch up the images the AI produced, the contract likely would have been less profitable for him because it requires less time and work. So the defense that no one's job was quote-unquote replaced by AI is kind of failing to acknowledge that AI was doing a job that would have been a temporary contract, right? Something where additional human labor could have been brought in, but the showrunners made the creative decision to use a machine instead. Which brings us to the most common defense that Secret Invasion producers and fans have used about using AI in this situation, which is that the types of images that AI currently produces sort of fit the show's themes and content pretty well. The slightly amorphous, kind of shape-shifting alien vibe that the images evoke makes sense for a show about, you know, alien body snatchers and spies who don't really know who they can trust. However limited the execution of those themes are in this show, but I'm not going to get into a review of Secret Invasion at this point. Anyway, they want to dip into that uncanny valley territory that AI art basically gets you for free right now just because it is a little janky. Now, this is a bit of a tangent, but what's interesting about this is that Method is really relying on the flaws of AI image generation to achieve this scroll cubist style for the show. Sam Jackson's nose is kind of messed up in this image. The head and body shapes are a little out of whack in other places, and there are weird artifacts and compositing noise in the humanoid forms just because the AI isn't getting it quite right. And I imagine that there was some cleanup done by humans on these images to make the mistakes a little less obvious, take out stuff that was maybe a little too weird for a mass market product like this. And because AI produces particular images, because it still has a distinct visual motif based on just how it processes its training data, using it creatively could be justified in this specific instance. But AI tech won't stay this way forever. It's already shown market improvements over the last year since many of these tools went mass market. And this is a little sad because to me it really is AI's deficiencies that make it a unique and interesting way to produce art. If you can call it that. It's these deficiencies that give us a reason beyond simple expediency of automation to use AI. And I don't want to get bogged down in this, but there's a great video about an AI-generated beer commercial by a YouTuber called Little Joel that pretty aptly summarizes my feelings on the matter, and I'll link it in the description. Anyway, back to the MCU. I think that despite a potentially legitimate creative choice to take advantage of AI's natural visual style, expanding the use of AI in media like this will not be a good thing for fans, working artists, or really anyone but Disney executives looking to save a buck on labor costs. I mean, aside from the basic critique that this particular use case could probably have been rendered at a higher quality by human artists, this is just a little more worrying as part of a larger trend with AI. While I think something like this was inevitable, it is disheartening to see a massive company like Disney jumping on the AI bandwagon in such a prominent way, especially because the legal and ethical state of AI is far from a settled matter. A lot of people were skeptical that large studios would use AI in major projects like this because of the legal risk that it could open up. Because AI models use vast amounts of copyrighted data in their training sets, and because raw, unaltered AI images cannot be themselves copyrighted, you can see why lawyers might be hesitant to greenlight something like this. Unfortunately, under new or unprecedented circumstances, luck favors the bold and well-resourced, and few corporations have used their legal muscle to strong-arm IP law in their favor more effectively than Disney. By using AI in such a prominent way, Disney is effectively issuing a challenge that is likely to go unmet. It's unclear who would be specifically harmed in this case, enough so that they could have standing to sue, and since it's a straight-to-Disney Plus product, there isn't much financially at stake, even if the show did encounter some legal challenge. So it feels a bit like Disney is taking their inch to get their mile, creating a precedent for the use of AI image generation in their products, and the longer any individual AI product stays on the market unchallenged, the better Disney's legal position will be going forward. What's more, I was kind of half expecting Disney to defend this choice by revealing that they had used a model trained on proprietary and open source data, for example, of which Disney would have a vast amount to draw from. But they've made no mention of this, and this is troubling because it indicates that they don't really care about where the data comes from, only that they can secure access to whatever tools get them their desired results. In summary of this point, the sooner they commit to this, the longer any AI product remains on the market unchallenged, the harder it will be to establish limitations on AI's use, whether for legal concerns, labor rights, or ethical reasons. Now, as I noted at the start of this video, another aspect of the backlash here is that Secret Invasion's release coincided with the ongoing writers and then actors strike. And this has yielded some interesting defenses of AI, not from the studios involved in Secret Invasion, but from fans and internet commentators and even people working in the industry. The only one that I really want to talk about, because it's been bothering me for a while, is the argument that AI will ultimately be good for writers, artists, and fans because it will increase the rate at which shows can be produced. That AI will allow studios to generate more content faster. And this is good for creatives because it will reduce the amount of work they have to do, often, as some claim, the most tedious and laborious parts of their work. And it's good for fans because they will get to see their favorite shows sooner than later. Now, on its face, I think this is just a silly and kind of ahistorical situation to call this an unambiguously good thing for artists and writers. If automation reduces the human hours needed to make a product, owners will typically just cut labor costs and pocket the profit of their new and improved productive capacity, rather than distribute these gains to a now displaced or underemployed labor force. And unlike the case of, say, manufacturing, with AI, text, and art, we don't even get the benefit of offloading like dangerous or physically taxing work to machines. I guess some of us might avoid a little carpal tunnel, but I'm more likely to get that from gaming than, painting or drawing. Anyway, long and short of it is that studios will hire fewer artists or hire them for shorter contracts the second that AI is competent enough to pick up the slack. And this will not benefit artists and writers unless they fight hard for their cut right now. Now, before we move to the fan side of things, I want to note that I haven't seen nearly as many defenses of AI on the basis that it will improve the quality of content, only the rate of its production. And I think that this is both interesting and telling. Many people aren't making this claim because AI in its current form is purely derivative and frankly pretty bad at important stuff like, putting together a cohesive narrative, or in the case of images, working to consistent models or specifications without a lot of human assistance. While the quality argument is used in the case of smaller creators who might be able to take advantage of AI tech to stretch limited budgets and still achieve reasonably good-looking results, notably not a problem that Disney or Marvel Studios has. But I think even the defenders of AI's broad use in spaces like TV production kind of get that AI is not going to be the tool that gets us the next Breaking Bad. And if it is involved, it will probably be a footnote in the vision of a very creative, very passionate, and very human team. With that in mind, let's turn to audiences. The argument goes that more shows is better and AI will help us get there. Now, I am generally pretty skeptical of what we might call end-of-history arguments, like, we've reached the end of major advancements in science or politics or culture, and the status quo is just how things will be forever. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to make a good argument that the human race just doesn't produce enough content fast enough. You know what I mean? Like the notion that we actually don't have enough art, music, movies, and games, and in order to further elevate the human race, we need more new content faster. People already complain about Marvel and superhero fatigue, about being forced to catch up on all these shows just to understand the next piece of media in these massive franchises. People complain about how they have to subscribe to too many streaming services to access the shows that they actually do want to watch. And people have nearly limitless access to user-generated content through YouTube and TikTok, and we haven't even really talked about, movies or video games yet. You don't have time for more shows. You think you do, but you do not. This is why Netflix cancels half their projects after 2 seasons. This is why you keep telling your friends that Succession or Ted Lasso are, on your list, but you're actually just going to go home and watch a Twitch streamer play Diablo 4 for 8 hours because you want to play it, but you refuse to give Blizzard $70 for the privilege. You refuse to do this because you've already purchased Diablo 2, a game released in 1999, 3 separate times, and frankly, it's still pretty good, and you'd rather just chill with Deckard Cain than spend 5 seconds with Jason Sudeikis and his smug, white, mustachioed face. Nobody needs more content. You have enough content. The content production pipeline is just fine for the needs of the human race. And we can well afford to consider the consequences of tech like AI before we dive into them headfirst. If anyone happens to have survived to the end of this video, thank you for sticking around. Tell me your thoughts on this move by Marvel Studios in the comments. Is the Secret Invasion intro worrying to you? Is it exciting? Am I wrong that we don't need more TV shows faster and faster and that AI really is the way to get those sweet, sweet binging sessions back on the menu? Let me know, and let me know if you found this interesting and want to see more of it, because I do have more thoughts on this kind of stuff for sure. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Secret Invasion itself, I might do a little bit of that in the next video. Well, all right, folks, have a great day. Do some drawing today, get creative, and take care. All right, bye-bye.